Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today, we are going to be talking about who you should be pulling in the latest Honkai Star Rail update. If you don't know, version 3.2 is only 6 days away, and we need to start talking about which characters are more and less valuable to pull, because HSR is rerunning the quadruple banners. We're getting Rice Ball along with 3 of her companions on the first half, and then second half, we're going to be getting Anaxa along with Dr.Ratio, which is just the normal 2 banner. So we're gonna have 6 characters coming up, a lot to decide this update. A lot's also been changed thanks to the addition of the new 5-star 50/50 loss mechanic. So we're gonna talk about all that here today. And boys, let's just jump right into it. And why don't we just start with talking about probably the most valuable character, or debatably the most valuable character coming up in the next update. Dr. Castorice. Yeah, I got you with that one, didn't I? Good April Fool's joke. I don't even think I'm uploading this on April 1st. Anyways, probably debatably one of the 2 most valuable characters coming next update is going to be Castorice. Rice Ball, as I like to call her, because I think it's funny. Anyways, she is one of the most broken characters in the whole game. To kind of summarize it up quickly, what she does, she lowers your team's HP with her skill instead of taking skill points, and that is also how you charge her burst state, and her burst state is how you get her gigantic dragon that does all that huge big PP damage. You know what I mean? You know, when it tears through the rift of time and then it screams at the enemy at the top of its lung and blows them to smithereens? Yeah, that move. Now, a couple interesting things to note about this dragon is that it's actually somewhat self-sufficient. Whenever your characters heal, it heals along with them, which is actually super interesting. And anytime your characters get to 1 HP, the dragon will actually take the damage for them and leave them at 1 HP instead of just outright killing them. As you can see right here, you don't die right away. The damage gets transferred to the dragon. The dragon stays on field for 3 turns in total, and then when it's off field, you'll need to respawn it again, obviously, doing what you did previously, which was just using your skill over and over again, draining your team's HP, and then respawning the dragon. Of course, the other important thing to note about Castorice is her global passive, which makes it so where if even one of your teammates dies, you'll get a revive, which bumps her value up quite a bit, mainly for players who would typically be a little worse at the game. Maybe you can't optimally clear the MOC every time. Maybe you struggle a bit. You die a couple times. Well, this will help you circumvent that. Having a teammate who can revive anybody on your whole account at any time, even if they're not in your party at all, is a pretty good mechanic. It's not game breaking for people who are pretty established players of this game and already have good healers and sustains. But for new players, it can be quite helpful, and it does boost up her value. And for her pull priority, I would put her pretty highly. If you're missing a good DPS, and you perhaps maybe didn't pull a Vherda or an Aglia, this would be one of the better characters this update. The way the game's going right now, it is going in a very HP-based mechanic way, which we've seen with Maide, with Tribi, and now with this character that all have HP scaling, and kind of their whole kit revolves around HP. And currently, we're going to see that reflected in the Memory of Chaoses, probably the Pure Fictions in the future, which she should be pretty good for because she is an AoE character. Then also the AP Shadows. In fact, we're already seeing it in the MOC currently with the new buff that we got with the increasing all allies max HP, and then the restoration as well, which Castorice will benefit from. So at least at the current moment in time, she should be a very, very strong unit. How future-proof she is, it's really hard to say. When we start getting to later updates like 4.0, 5.0, will she still be as good? Probably not, because power creep is a thing. And it's even happened to some of our favorite characters, like the best DPS from the 2.0 updates, Acheron. That's debatable, but she is a very solid DPS, and she is somebody who can be worth picking up if you get her light cone. That is important. It's kind of sad to say, but she is one of the DPSs in the game who's a little more reliant on getting her light cone than any other character, which does make her a tad more expensive than any other character in the whole game. Obviously, most of us should know how Acheron works by now. She has the E skills, and you have to recharge her ultimate by applying debuffs to the enemies and also using her skills or basic attacks. So generally, if you have a lot of nihility on your account, Acheron can be a very decent pickup, and then you can unleash your huge ultimate, which is still a pretty good damage multiplier. It's not going to be on the same level as Castorice and her huge dragon, or even some of the newer DPSs that we're getting, such as Vherda or My Day, but it's still overall a very high damage multiplier that still works in most endgame content. It's still very usable. You can beat all content with her, but I think it's very important that you have the right supports for her. Now, luckily, in a couple updates, we are going to be getting Quantum Cat Girl, who should be a good support for her. But currently, there are still a lot of good ones, and more who we're going to talk about later. But if you have a lot of the good Nihilities, like, for example, Fugue's good for her, who's also coming out this update. Jiaoqiu is good for her, who's also coming out this update. By that, I mean getting a re-1. Black Swan's great with her. Pela, who's like a free 4-star, is great with her as well. So if you have a lot of these good Nihilities to pair with her, she becomes a lot more valuable. If you don't have them, well then, I probably wouldn't recommend Acheron as much. And that's not me saying she's a bad character. I just think you need a lot more with her than you do other characters. With a lot of characters in the game, they just require a lot less to work. Acheron doesn't necessarily need her light cone, but it definitely is one of the biggest damage multipliers for her in the whole game. Having right supports for her, like Jiaoqiu, is another very important thing because it's also a huge damage multiplier for her that's in the form of a character. So in a way, in this new update, I would almost group her and Jiaoqiu together, saying that if you have one, I'd probably pull the other because they work so well as a duo. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a Jiaoqiu to showcase, but this guy is still super valuable for sure. The ultimate damage increase is still a really good buff, which like 3 times Acheron's damage. Okay, maybe not that extreme, but it's a very big damage increase for Acheron, and maybe even other potential characters in the future this could be really good with. We'll have to kind of wait and see with that though. So if you want to build a team around Acheron, I would highly recommend picking up Jiaoqiu this update as well. And the last character who's on the first of the 4 banners is going to be Fugue. And Fugue is a character you can honestly get no matter what team you really want to build. Fugue is a pretty universal unit who can work with a character like Acheron. She can work with Himiko. She can work with super break teams. There's a lot of teams she can really find value in. And she's one of the more universal characters in the game that I find has a ton of value, especially in a lot of the late game content. I use her in quite a bit of it. She can apply an effect to your allies called Phoxian Prayer, which essentially allows them to break any enemy. Now, I won't lie, there's a character coming up who we're going to talk about that basically does the same thing and allows any ally to break any enemy, but it's still a really good buff, and it's still really broken. Same thing with her ult. Breaking all the enemies is great for pure fiction, great for MOC, and again, makes her very universal. She kind of functions both as a Nihility unit to support Acheron. She supports as a break unit to support super break teams, and also a DPS when she needs to do damage. Obviously not the greatest DPS in the game, but definitely not somebody who I would shrug the value at. And I would say out of all of the characters that aren't Castorice and Anaxa, I would say she's probably the most valuable out of the other 4. If you already have on your account somebody like a Firefly, like an Acheron, and you're already building these kind of 5-star limited teams, then I would highly recommend pulling Fugue to mesh with those teams. Also because she's gorgeous. Like top 1 design in the whole game, genuinely. Damn, look at that fan go. Anyways, let's move on to the next character. The first or second best character coming up in the next update, Dr. Anaxa. I'm sorry that I had to bait you again, Dr.Ratio lovers, but Anaxa is probably going to be one of the most valuable characters coming up in the next update. We saw in his little trailer that bro has the literal ability to implement every single weakness in the entire game. He can implement every single one, which I'll be honest is a stupid ability. I actually really don't like it from a fundamental standpoint because I feel like it takes away from a lot of the strategy. But my thoughts aside on the ability, it makes him super universal. He can work as a support in nearly any DPS team, especially if you want to use him in pure fiction because he is an erudition character, which because he's an erudition character as well, he is going to be an amazing support for V Herta. You pair those two together, it will be wild for your teams. The Herta can outbreak anything in the game. Anaxa can trigger stuff. You get those two with Tribi. Oh my gosh, that's going to be a nasty team. Now, unfortunately, the one thing about Anaxa, which makes him a little RNG, is the effect he places with his skill is random, so you're not guaranteed to get the same effect every time. But what they did say about this is that when you use this little ultimate, it does just inflict all 7 weaknesses at once. So regardless of what you did with your skill, in that ultimate, you do just apply all the weaknesses in the game. So my general recommendations for Anaxa is, if you have a Herta, definitely pull him. Going to be one of the best supports for her, for sure. If you have other Erudition characters, again, would be great as well. If you struggle with game modes like Pure Fiction, he's going to be very valuable for that, being a Erudition character. Now, I should say he doesn't necessarily like supplement the role of a good Harmony character. I still think you'll probably need a good Harmony with him. Most of his teams are probably going to look something like a good Erudition character or just a good DPS, some sort of Harmony, and then he would be in the slot where Jade is now, and then a healer on the end. So he kind of supplements that sub DPS role that somebody like a Topaz used to fit a lot, or even in some realm, you can consider Trivia sub DPS because she does a ridiculous amount of damage. So end of the day, great sub DPS, implements every weakness, probably will be broken. Anyways, let's talk about, oh God. Okay, Dr. Ratio. I'm going to be honest. I was a bit confused when I saw that he was rerunning this update. I think most of us, if we've played from the beginning of the game, should already have a Dr. Ratio. I don't even think I need to talk about his value, because if you've been playing from day one, you should already have a Dr. Ratio. But I guess if I'm speaking to someone right now who played after the free Dr. Ratio, then my recommendation would be just don't pull him. You don't need to. I mean, a majority of us should already have Dr. Ratio, and unless you absolutely love him, there is no reason to roll for these Eidolons. Again, like I said, unless you absolutely adore this character, I don't highly recommend rolling for those. If you're a new player who just came into the game, I mean, there is some use in him if maybe you want to run him in a follow-up team with, I mean, Fei Zhao, even though she's just kind of a better main DPS than he is, but you can pair the two together if you really want. Anyways, with that aside, that is going to be the end of our video for today. I hope this video did help you out a bit. If you did enjoy it, I appreciate it. A little like and a subscribe. But regardless, that's going to be all for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to see you all in the next one. Peace.